Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to be working on a reel that Wayne has sent in. He's watched some of our videos where we've used the Hybrid Ceramic Bearings from Boca, and he has asked if I couldn't help improve the performance of this Abu Ambassadeur reel. I believe it's the 5500. The badge is worn off. Can't find out the exact model, but that's okay. This one is going to result in a significant improvement in spool speed because, well, they've got bushings in here. So if you're looking to maximize your performance of a fishing reel, one of the easiest things you can do is find those reels that have the bushings, whether they're the old brass bushings or whether they're the new plastic bushings or what have you inside your reel. The replacement of those with the bearings will maximize the spool speed, improve this performance of the reel dramatically. And here's an example. We're just going to push it into free spool, and you can see we don't even have a half a turn here. Just watch the dust there. With a good effort, you can't turn this thing half a turn. And well, we're going to show you how to improve that. And we're going to use the Boca Bearings Hybrid Ceramics to do just that. But we're going to get started on this. This reel needs a service in addition to just replacing that. But if you've recently had your reel serviced, then you can do this project yourself. It's relatively easy to do. We'll explain the steps on how to change over from bushings to bearings as we go along in this. And if your reel hasn't been serviced in a while, this is a good opportunity to follow along and do that service yourself. One of the things I notice immediately is we do not have the E-clip that holds this gear shaft on. So what happens as a result, you can see how this handle moves in and out. And a lot of times folks will tell me I've got a lot of movement in and out. Well, whoever did this reel the last time neglected to put that clip back on. So we'll have to get a replacement clip for that as we go through the service. I'm going to start by taking you off the exterior pieces and parts. As we do, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to learn about fishing reel service and repair, if you'd like to learn the best ways to keep your reels properly maintained, if you'd like to learn a little bit about the reels themselves, who made them and how they're used, it's a good channel for you. That's what I try to do in terms of the second chance. And I try to pass on what I've learned to you so that, well, you can do it yourself and you can be more knowledgeable in the field. So just use that subscription button. It doesn't cost you anything. It'll give you kind of a leg up in terms of what's being posted. And, well, you can make a decision as to whether that's something you'd like to watch. Here's your spool. There's no bearing on this side. Here's your spool here. There's no bearing on this side. There's a lot of different configurations of these Ambassadeur reels, so just make sure you know which one you have. And there we go. We have a brass bushing in the back of this one. So we're going to take the side plate off here so that we gain access to that. We'll clean up the reel, and well, we'll service the gear side as well while we're doing this. Well, when I take my pieces and parts off, they go into a parts tray. That guarantees that I know where they are when it's time to reinstall. I was quick on showing that parts tray, but it does have 8 corners in it, and I do use those corners to organize and keep track of the parts by sub-assembly. So, for example, these 3 screws on the non-gear side are going into one of those corners right now. You have to remove the non-gear side plate in order to change out that bushing. Sometimes you're going to find that your Ambassadeur reel has the bearing in the spool. If that's the case, you do not need to remove this. When you remove this, pay particular attention to the click mechanism. This one's staying on here, but sometimes they come off. Those click mechanisms have these little plastic tubes that go over the 2 posts as spacers. So you want to make sure that you have control of those and that you don't lose them. I'm going to use a little piece of steel wool here because this reel here is got a good amount of corrosion on there, or at least fishing film and the like. So we're going to try and buff that off. This is a 4, that's 0000 in terms of coarseness. It's the finest of the steel wools that you can get. It's not particularly abrasive, but it does help, similar to a small wire brush in terms of removing some of that stuff. And when you do the service on a fishing reel, it's always a good idea to clean up what you can. Don't rush into a service. Some people might say, okay, all I want to do is replace the bushings with bearings and jump and just kind of do that. As long as you're taking the time to service the reel, if you've got it open, take the time to clean it, inspect it, and well, put it back together again. This is the idler gear. This is one that needs inspection. You need to make sure all of the teeth are on the reel. Otherwise, it's not going to turn and move the line guide. This one does have an E-clip that's holding it on. So I'm going to grab a very small screwdriver to pull that out. And just be careful with these E-clips. They tend to shoot. I wouldn't be surprised if that's how they lost the other one that goes on the main gear post. This is your E-clip. Put that into the box for safekeeping. This will come off now. And now we have a little wire retainer that's holding that bearing in place, or bushing in place. Getting ahead of myself, I know I want to put the bearing in there. So use that same tool, find the end of that little wire clip, work it in behind. Sometimes easier said than done. Hold it again because it can't shoot. It is a spring clip. There you go. And now we can pull that bushing out. Now on the bushing, this bushing has a little point right here. You don't need to worry that with a bearing. The bushing point is to hold it so that if this does clog up, the whole bushing doesn't spin inside that carrier. That little stud holds that off. But if you have a bearing, of course you have an inside race and you have ball bearings. And well, once you have those two, then it's kind of relatively easy to set that up and not worry about the two spinning. Well, we're going to get the replacement bearings right now. I've ordered these from Boca Bearings. You can order these too. I'll leave the package number or part number in the video for you. When you check your bearings, you want to make sure that they are the same height, that is the width, the same internal diameter, and the same outer diameter. They conveniently, Boca Bearings has a size chart that's on the website, and even if you don't have the calipers to measure it, it will allow you to align these to find the right ones. And this is the right one, and you can see how quickly that's going to spin now, as opposed to what we were getting with this one, where it hardly turns at all. That's how it will improve the performance and really move this reel up to scale in terms of casting ability and the ability to get the most out of that reel. What I'm doing now is I'm just pushing that in. You heard the snaps. I'm going to take that retainer wire now. We'll start with the end that kind of has a little bend to it. Seat that into your groove and just pull it around to seat the rest of it. And that's it. That's what you need to do there. We want to clean this idler gear off. I'm just going to use a little penetrating oil to do that. While I do that, well, why buy from Boca Bearings? Right? I've been working with Boca Bearings now for some time. I can tell you that they are a reliable source for the product, that you're always getting what you're paying for. You're not subject to misclassification or one and done kind of relationships on the internet. And well, they stand behind their products. If there's an issue with them, they have a service department, and well, they're going to take care of you. They treasure their customer relationships. That's something you should consider in purchasing your bearings and other products. They have a range of products in support of the bearings. They have things like bearing pliers and calipers, oils and greases and the like. So it's more than just the bearings, but the service remains the same regardless. Okay, I'm going to put that E-clip back onto our case right now. I use the pliers. You can probably use hand strength, and then just kind of give it a whirl, make sure that that works the way it should. Well, I was fortunate on this one that I didn't pop those two little retainers or spacers. Every now and then that happens. I guess I wasn't paying much attention there, but I should have. And we'll just put a little bit of oil onto the worm gear drive there, and then we can line this up, bring this over, put this case on, and move over to the gear side. Okay, when you do that, make sure that you have a nice tight seam where the case meets the frame. If you don't have that seam, you're going to have a problem. It's not going to align squarely, and if you lose the square, you're going to have a problem with the performance of the reel. Something will be scraping. Went to my micro driver. The slots on these screws are pretty small. Just want to make sure that we have our click ratchet functioning before we move over to the other side. So this case kind of tells you the reel's been around a while. We noticed that the spool's spinning slow. Now that's in free spool, so that's the bearing versus bushing conversation we're having here, where the bushing will be slower than the bearings will be. And the fastest of the bearings that you're going to find is a hybrid ceramic bearing. Why is that? Well, ceramics have a better tolerance than steel. They don't corrode. They're ceramic, so they're not going to rust like a steel bearing is going to rust. They're harder than the steel bearings, so they're not going to wear as much. And overall, it's going to give you less friction, and less friction is going to equal a greater ability to cast. Alright, we're going to take a little bit of grease onto the axle shaft. We'll bring this in. Pay attention when you're working with this spool. We do have our centrifugal brakes here. You don't want to lose those. And one other thing to do before we move over to the other side is to service this pawl. To do that, we want to remove the pawl cap. And just gently tapping it like I did there will help you to remove the pawl. And you can see we have an awful lot of dirt and debris on that pawl that needs to be cleaned off. I'll just show you a little bit of that here. I want to make sure that the shoulders are clear of that. Quite a bit on there. And then you need to inspect the points to make sure that they're equal. Still a little bit stubborn there, so I'm going to spend more time with the paper towel and the wings. And now we have a clear pawl so that we can reinstall that in here. Before I reinstall, I want to grab a cotton swab, clean out the case. You always get a little bit of dirt in there. If you have big fingers like I do, you may want to use an assist in putting the pawl back in. Before I put it in all the way, I want to put a drop of oil onto that so it turns free and easy. And we can bring that down. You can bring your spool over. Turn the spool, which is going to turn the worm gear, and pull so that it seats properly. I just felt it snap in there. And then we place the pawl cap. Check your worm gear to make sure it's clean. This one's clean. If it's not clean, spray it down with some penetrating oil, run the reel and it will, onto a paper towel. It will clean that up. That's the non-gear side. Let's go over to the gear side. We have one more bearing we want to replace in there. Oh, we want to put a bearing in there. We want to replace the bushing. There's 2 screws that are involved in this. And I'm not sure, you might be able to just replace it on this side. I think it's going to come out the other side. This is your other bushing. So you'll notice in the different iterations of the Abu line that there's different setups inside internally, and there's also different setups with bushings versus bearings. The only way you're going to know what you have is to open up the reel and check. Well, it looks like the bushing comes out the front. I'm not sure if we have that clip in here. I think we should have a clip in there, but I'm not seeing that clip. So we should just be able to push that through. There we go. Push that through. Easy enough to replace. So you do need to remove the side plate cover in order to replace that piece. But it's as easy as that. We don't have the clip, so that's unfortunate, but that's all right. Shouldn't be that much of an issue. And because we don't have that E-clip on this, this whole post is just going to pull right up and out. And that's something that needs to be considered. Okay, I like to push this into the release position so that I can get to the pinion gear. On the pinion gear, you have a plastic collar with 2 slots. That's what's going to grab the fork here. And this is an earlier version of the reel. As we mentioned, you have the bushings in there. And you also have a different architecture on the free spool release. Now, if you were having an issue with the free spool release, you can go into greater detail than if you're just servicing the reel. Servicing the reel, you just want to make sure that the base is clean. And this one's very clean. There's a little bit of old grease right there where the pinion gear meets. But the rest of it has got a clean base to it, so no need to do anything. If you found out you had a broken part, and I'm not even sure how many parts are available for this reel any longer, but if you had a broken part, pull this E-clip here. It's holding a spring in. Everything else will come right off, and well, you can go clean that up. All right. There should be a little plastic, copper or brass washer. Don't lose that one. That belongs on the post. On this one, we've taken care to grease and clean the gear. So the plastic side of the shoulder goes in. And again, the tag ends go in those slots. So that's your setup for your pinion gear. We're going to pull the rest of this off. We have a top washer here. Good place to tell you to take pictures so that you know when you go to reinstall what the orientation is. You have the top washer. We have a couple of washers underneath. We have a plastic spacer with a bearing washer or a cap washer there. And what we're trying to do here is just examine the one drag washer that's in here. And this one's just recently been replaced. That's a Carbon Tex washer. So nothing needs to be done with that. And the base side of this one is clear. And I guess when they did the Carbon Tex washer replacement, that's when they lost the E-clip. All right, put that back on. You have that hard washer that goes under that spacer. And we have a series of spacer washers here. Tension washer. There's only one of these curved tension washers, so it really doesn't matter if it goes up or down. We have the flat washer that the star adjuster is going to work on. And then this is your finger jointed anti-reverse. There is no instant anti-reverse in this one. You separate the fingers, one on each side of the ratchet and pointing outwards. Okay, a little bit of grease onto the shaft here. Bring that over. Target the post here for your anti-reverse dog. Make sure you mesh in with your pinion gear. I just threw the switch on this for the return lever. That works fine. And now I got to find an E-clip for the reel. These can be ordered online. People lose them all the time, and gee whiz, they're not cheap. But I have them here because, well, that's exactly what happens. Folks lose them. I tried once using an assortment of E-clips. These are just a little bit thinner and seem to have just a little bit different diameter to them than the ones that come in those assortment packs. That's going to go on here like that, but we can't put that on until we complete the rest of the reassembly and we complete the handle. Then we can put it on. Alright, I'm going to use a little kitchen scrubby with some rod and reel cleaner on it. Get the orientation correct. We're looking for these two holes to match these two holes here. Bring that over. Match the holes. Line up the free-spool release. Make sure you get a nice snap, just like we were talking about on the other side. It needs to be a very tight, seamless fit, if you will, where the two join. And once that happens, we can bring this in. And one more. And so what have we done? We kind of explained to you a little bit about why the bearings are going to make all the difference in the world. We showed you an example of how that bushing just doesn't spin on that axle shaft like a bearing will. Kind of told you a little bit about the reasons for using the ceramics versus the steel, and a little bit more about using Boca bearings as opposed to just ordering something randomly off the internet. Okay, and then of course we've replaced both of these bushings. Alright, next up then, what we want to do is take our star adjuster, put that on. If it's not going on free and easy like this, stop. You may have it cross-threaded. If you have it cross-threaded, you're going to ruin the threads on that gear post. You're going to have to go get another gear post. Okay. This shows probably been in salt water. We've lost some paint in that. You have to put that on before you can put the E-clip back on. We'll do that right now. Sometimes you can put them in by finger strength, like we were talking about on that idler gear. Well, if you don't have the hand strength, it looks like I don't have the hand strength for this. And the pliers can assist. That's how the clip belongs on here. Now you'll notice there's no movement in and out of the post. That post is tight. It's moving on the handle, which isn't tied down yet, but not on that post. So if you're missing that clip, that's going to cause your main gear to move in and out, and it could cause uneven wear on your pinion gear or tracking on your main gear. So you want to make sure that you get that right. All right. When you get this either perpendicular to the hole or you get a point pointing directly at the hole, your cap can normally just fit right on, get tightened down. When you go to reinstall to the case, make sure that you put a little bit of grease onto the axle shaft. Generally speaking, when I go to install the case, I like to have the reel in free spool. Looks like there's some wear and corrosion on this. The other thing you need to do is you need to make sure that these centrifugal brakes are pulled in like they are here, because they have to fit inside of the race. If you leave them out, or if they fall out, they get trapped on here. You can't get a good seal on your side plate, and more importantly, you'll probably ruin the brakes themselves. Okay, let's aim these for the right setup. I think we got it. Again, check, nice tight seam all the way around. Then you can use your fingers to get these started. And then we can give it a test. We'll see how we did. That's always the fun part. I know one thing, the only pieces I have left in the parts tray are the old bushings. Everything else we've pretty much taken apart. We've cleaned, inspected, lubricated. When you tighten them down by hand, finish the tightening just a quarter of a turn or so with the screwdriver. Seat that. All right, the gloves come off. A little bit of quick cleanup here. Let's see how we did. Well, the reel turns nice and free and easy, but I noticed that I forgot to put a little bit of penetrating oil onto the knobs. Just adjusting our spool now. There you go, that knob is freed up now. The other one's freed up. Very good. There you go. Feels better. All right, let's see how we did. Now it's going to be a little bit harder to see on a black spool here, but when we go into free spool now, I need a little bit of an adjustment. Much different performance, right? Spinning free and easy. This one's going to cast nicely. So that was the whole idea behind this, was making sure that we could get ourselves to the point where the reel performance has improved. And particularly if this is going to be used in a saltwater environment, you've not only improved the performance of it, but you've kind of safeguarded against bearing wear, rust, corrosion, and the like. All right, well, that's it. I hope you've enjoyed that. Before I leave, I want to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, everybody involved in keeping us out of harm's way. I truly appreciate what it is that you do day in and day out to keep us safe. And I want to thank everybody for watching, for making this channel what it is, for helping to determine what videos I make, and, well, the content and the like. Love that. Just absolutely love that. We've got at least a full spool rotation now from a flick, which we didn't have before. Okay, that's it. Before I leave, I want to wish everybody tight lines, great fishing, and fun in reel repair. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.